Good evening and welcome to DTV, Democratic Television for Democrats by Democrats in Knoxville. My name is Doug Viam and I'm here with our erstwhile regular commentator Bill Owen, Knoxville's own member of the Democratic National Committee who has just returned from a meeting of the Democratic National Committee in Atlanta, where among other things the DNC elected a new chairperson. And what a meeting it was. Bill is here to fill us in on the whole story and share with us his knowledge of the new DNC chair with some predictions of the new chair's projected impact on our party, and heaven knows we need somebody to kind of just keep us going. But first, a reminder that the Knox County Democratic Party organizing convention is coming up on Saturday, March 25th. That's just 2 weeks away. And new officers will be elected to lead the KCDP at that convention, similar to what just occurred in Atlanta when new officers were chosen for the DNC. If you want to be a delegate at the convention and participate in the election of new officers for the Knox County Party, check on the KCDP website. If you just Google Knoxville Democrats, the website will come up. And on the website there is a section on the convention, and it has all the details. But you'll have to attend a district meeting prior to the convention, sometime in the week before the convention. Those are all listed to be selected as a delegate. The districts, which are coincidental to the county commission districts, all have apportioned delegates based on how those districts supported the Democratic gubernatorial candidate in the last Democratic primary. Anyway, and there are some exceptions to that on the website, so you need to read the website and then attend a meeting before the meeting on the 25th. Bill, what happened in Atlanta and what should we know about it? And what can you tell us from your experience attending the biggest and most important meeting for Democrats this year?
Well, thanks, Doug, and I'm very happy to be here. I have just returned from Atlanta. We had a great meeting. It was a long meeting. It started, I started on Wednesday night when we had the debate among all the candidates. I was a guest at CNN. I was in the audience there for the debate. And then Thursday we had additional meetings. Friday we had more meetings. And then Saturday we had the election.
So what was the venue, by the way, as long as we're talking about it? Where were you? I mean, you're in Atlanta, but where in Atlanta were you?
We were at, the main hotel was the Westin Hotel.
Okay.
The big, tall, 70-story hotel. And then the actual meetings took place, most of the meetings took place there in the Westin, the preliminary meetings. But then the actual election was at Atlanta's Mart. America's Mart, which is connected by a sky bridge to the Westin Hotel. So it was a contentious, it was a very energetic group of people, energetic crowd, and it showed the diversity of the Democratic Party. And we ended up being unified. We ended up, Tom Perez won, and all the DNC members from Tennessee supported Tom, and so we were very happy that he won. But it was a close vote. He got 213.5 votes on the first ballot, and he needed 214.5 to actually win on the first ballot.
Difference.
So then the second ballot, he got 235 and won handily in the second ballot. So it was like I say, it was an exciting time to be there, and I'm very excited about the future of the Democratic Party, about where we are right now. Now, Tom Perez, as his first act, appointed or asked for permission to appoint Keith Ellison, his opponent, as the deputy, create a new position as deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee. And he appointed Keith Ellison, his strongest opponent, and so we came out of Atlanta quite unified. There were some people who supported Keith that were disappointed, of course, and all of us have been on losing campaigns. But now you see Tom Perez and Keith Ellison working hand in hand and working to unify this Democratic Party in such a critical time. This is one of the more critical times in our lifetimes, really, Doug. I mean, it's not existential critical, but it is a critical time for America.
Right, it is. We are. I mean, we could talk about the ACA. We could talk about what the legislation is going on. We could also talk about what the view of the world has towards us at this point. All of those, I think, are in crises, and all of that is, yeah.
They are,
yeah.
but I don't want to overemphasize that because, we've been through World War I,
yeah,
World
II,
War
yeah.
II. We
We're
went
not
through
there.
the Vietnam
Right,
War, where
right.
people, including you and me, were out in the streets protesting against the war and against the draft and everything. I don't know about you, but I was.
I was actually in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was in the Navy Reserve. You were in Vietnam.
I was there, yeah.
I was in the Navy Reserve, but
Yeah,
and
I remember the time. Yeah, I do.
Right.
And that, yes, that was a different time. There's no question.
it was,
about that,
and
yeah.
it was a, arguably that was a lot worse than it is now.
I agree. I agree.
But now this is for this century and for this generation. This is a critical time, and the person that some people call not my president has created some consternation around the world with the uncertainty that people have on what is happening in America.
I don't want to emphasize too much either the downside of it, but here's what it seems like to be. It seems like that we as a nation have just kind of been moving up that hill and just needed a little push to get over the top of it, and we didn't make it over that top, and now we're kind of holding on so we don't slide back so far. I think that's
I think that's a apt
yeah,
metaphor.
that's how I feel.
I think you're exactly right.
Okay, and seems to me that the DNC and the chair play a role in helping us get back up to the top.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. And by having Keith and Tom working so closely together, and there's a new group called that is organizing Americans for Progress.
Americans for Progress, not what's the
Not Americans
not for
for
Prosperity, right?
but
That's
it's,
the other one.
and
Okay, right. Yeah.
I'm probably not saying that. Maybe I'll look that up here in a minute.
Uh-huh.
But it's a new group that will, we hear a lot about the CPAC,
Yes.
which is the conservative group
Right.
that invites in different presidential candidates or have speakers once a year. Well, this will be a similar type event once a year, and the next one's coming up, I think, in May, that people are invited to. It will be in Washington. It will be a major event to try to link together the progressive various organizations, including the Democratic Party, but also all other progressive organizations to come up with some sort of strategy and some sort of unified resistance, to use a word, that will provide a foundation and a sounding board.
So who is Tom Perez, and how do you perceive that he's going to help us as a party? And then also, what role does the DNC play in that? So
Great question. Great question. Tom Perez is first of all, a man of very high integrity. He was in the Justice Department when under Eric Holder, and for the first few years. Then he became the Secretary of Labor. President Obama appointed him Secretary of Labor. He was head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. Our local U.S. Attorney for many years, Bill Killian, just wrote a glowing recommendation for Tom Perez, and that was one of the reasons that many of us in Tennessee supported Tom Perez. And all the five of us, there are 5 members.
Yeah,
of the
let's
DNC.
talk about that. Who are the members of the DNC? Okay. You're one of them. How did you get to be that?
Okay.
What do those things do?
We have 5 members of the Democratic National Committee in Tennessee. The chair and the vice chair of each state are automatic members of the Democratic National Committee.
So Mary Mancini.
Mary Mancini and John Litz from Morristown. Then we have other members who are elected as members of the Democratic National Committee by the Tennessee State Executive Committee.
Okay.
And there's a formula for how many members each state receives, how many elected at-large members each state receives. And that formula is based on the number of votes that the presidential candidate receives in a previous year.
Sure.
So in Tennessee, we have 3 elected at-large members. In the past, we've had 4 elected at-large members, but now we're down to 3. And of course, all of Democratic offices have to be gender balanced.
Yeah.
So when we have a male chair, then we have to have a female vice chair. Right now we have a female chair, Mary Mancini, so we have a male vice chair, John Litz.
Right.
So that evens that out.
Right.
Then in Tennessee, for the at-large DNC members, Gail Jones Carson is the secretary of the Tennessee Democratic State Executive Committee, and she is elected by the Executive Committee to represent West Tennessee on the Democratic National Committee. Will Cheek, who is I guess he's the longest serving member of the Tennessee State Executive Committee. He's been there since 1970. And he is the Middle Tennessee representative on the Democratic National Committee. And I'm the East Tennessee representative on the Democratic National Committee. I was elected in 2000 when Al Gore was our Democratic nominee, and have been on the DNC ever since. And have been very active on DNC, and I was heavily involved with the Tom Perez campaign. And I was a whip for Tom Perez, and actually carried a proxy vote from a lady from Guam. The Democratic National Committee allows for proxy voting, but only one proxy can be held by one member at the committee meeting.
So you can't carry 2 or 3 people.
You can't carry 10 or 15.
Yeah.
You can only carry. You're only allowed to carry one proxy.
So you've been on the DNC since 2000.
Since 2000.
Which means that you've minded your P's and Q's as far as the state executive committee is concerned.
Yes, and I'm
so they
I'm
feel
elected through 2020.
right, and that so there's your election, in my view, then says that the executive committee has confidence that you will represent Tennessee well in that position.
I hope so.
So what are the? Well, I think
hope
so. Yeah, I think so.
And fortunately, I've been able to be elected unanimously.
Sure.
And thanks to our our state executive committee members here in Knoxville, Sylvia Woods, who nominates me and has, I greatly appreciate her support, and Kim Weber and Mark Harmon, and then of course we have Richard Dawson from Oak Ridge, which is and has the northwest corner of Knox County, and Catherine Denenberg, who the 2 of them represent the 5th senatorial state senate district.
So so you represent this end of the state. What impact can the DNC have on not just the Knox County Democratic Party, but on the state party, and basically what will you do, or what do you do, or what can you do for the 2 levels of party organizations?
During the campaigns for chair for the DNC, almost every candidate identified exactly the same problems. We are not giving the states enough support. We are not giving local governments enough support, local county offices enough support. And so there is a commitment on behalf of all the new officers, and not just the chair, but all the new officers, to provide funding, support levels, really have this 50-state strategy and this 4,000 county strategy. So we are losing seats all over the country. We have lost seats all over the country, locally, and here in Knoxville and Knox County is a prime example. You know, when we lose people like Howard Wimberly and Judge Darrell Fansler, I mean, highly qualified, highly intelligent,
and then defeated by really substandard candidates in many ways.
Yes. Well, I don't want to
do that, but
cast aspersions on any sitting judge, but Judge Wimberly and Judge Fansler were just outstanding jurists, and everyone recognized that. They were highly recommended by the Bar Association. They were recommended and endorsed by the newspapers. But why has the Democratic Party fallen into such low esteem that they couldn't get reelected. And part of it is that the national parties and our national organizations have not done some of the work that they should have been doing. And this is what all of us from Tennessee and most people around most DNC members around the country, especially from those of us who live in what some people call the flyover states, we were saying, hey, you got to do something different. And so that's what all the candidates, and we not only did we elect Tom Perez and Tom appointed Keith, but then we have an outstanding group of secretary, treasurer, finance chair, and vice chairs who are all committed to a unified, strong response and strong rebuilding of local Democratic parties.
Now that we don't hold the presidency, so that there isn't a national figure in the party at the moment, does that mean that Tom Perez will start to be the face of the Democratic Party in the public?
In part, he will, but I noticed that last night, we're from the last night, meaning the night before we were taping this show, that Keith Perez was on MSNBC and has been. I think Keith is going to be one of
Keith Ellison.
Keith Ellison. I'm sorry, Keith Perez. I've got them unified in my mind already.
That's good.
But Keith Ellison is making some public appearances, and I think that's the thing about Tom. Tom is a builder. He is a nuts and bolts. He's the kind of guy that we need building this foundation, rebuilding this foundation. And he's not someone who necessarily is going to be trying to get in front of the cameras all the time. He's someone who is going to be rebuilding the party. And I think that's who we need. I think that's the kind of person we need.
As we were talking about this program a couple of days ago, I remember John Stewart saying to both of us that the DNC chair is an executive position. It's somebody who has to run an organization. And the fact that Perez has run the Labor Department is an indication that he has at least the experience of knowing how an organization operates and what he needs to do. So what do you think about him? What do you think about him from that aspect? Is he, besides being, he can be a face of us, but can he make a difference for Mary Mancini every day?
I think he can, and that was one of the main reasons that I supported him so strongly, because I do have this faith in him, and I've seen the type of work that he's done in the past, and I think he can help states and help counties rebuild the Democratic Party and revitalize the Democratic Party. We've got a lot of energy out here that's right now is in opposition to the president, in opposition to some of the things that the Republicans are doing. Well, that's well and good, but we've seen that opposition before. You know, we had opposition to the Republicans shutting down the government. They paid no political price for it.
They paid none.
We've had opposition to the Republicans fighting to passing the repeal of Obamacare 56 times or 62 times or however many times it was, but they paid no political price for it. We've got to do a whole lot more to hold the Republicans accountable, and I think it's got to be. And I sent Tom a message just earlier today. I think it's got to be. We've got to focus on the economic aspirations. The Democratic Party has to be a party of economic aspiration. We've got to help people with jobs. We've got to help. We've got to identify the problem, I think, as Republican trickle-down economic policies, trickle-down tax policies. That, in my opinion, is what has caused the widening of the income inequality gap. It's caused great problems in the spread in where the rich get richer, the poor get poor.
The income inequality spread, I've been reading articles recently, probably since the first of the year, although some early in the year, from economists who are writing in the New York Times, particularly in the upshot column. And how they describe the economy is very different from how the Republicans are describing the economy. And I think one of the problems in the Obama years is that we never described the economy for what it really was. In other words, it was better. It was doing things, not to say that everybody was gaining from it. The problem that you just pointed out was there. But I don't think we did not characterize the economy as good. We were much too defensive. Oh yeah, so we know that not everyone's getting there. We need a much more, I think, a more positive and much more accurate, actually.
I agree.
Thing. And Perez, as a labor secretary, probably saw that. I mean, not every laborer benefited, but gosh, there's more manufacturing done now than there's been ever. There's more people at work, essentially, than almost at any time. So.
And, good that you pointed that out, because one of the repeating themes in the campaign for DNC chair and for all these other officers was, we have great respect and admiration for President Obama, but President Obama could have done a lot better job focusing on what the problem was. Right. The problem being the Republican calcitrance and obstructionism.
Right.
It was Republicans who stopped the President Obama's jobs bill.
Right.
It was a do-nothing Congress for many years, and the entire time that President Obama was there, the Republicans did everything they possibly could to stop him. And President Obama, I think to his discredit, did not point that out and did not take the battle to him as soon as he should have.
Let me just give you an example. In a few days ago, Dan Henniger, who writes a bad column, I think, in the Wall Street Journal, wrote a column saying that after the speech to the joint session, the Democrats bailed out on public policy, bailed out on government. And he's accusing essentially the Democrats in the Congress of doing what I thought exactly was done by Mitch McConnell and at that point John Boehner from the get-go. And so there's what you have is you got this echo chamber out there that's telling the story differently from what it is. And can Tom Perez, can he marshal enough resources so that we can combat that? There are people out there advertising, Americans for Prosperity and whoever else are now advertising in key districts in support of the new, whatever that bill is for health care, and essentially spreading the rumor that the one that's there doesn't work, that the ACA is not working. Can Perez do something about that? Can he, or is he committed to doing something like that?
He is certainly committed to doing that, and the Democratic Party is committed to doing that. But more importantly, there is a broad coalition that's forming to protect the American the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's starting. I see it gelling already a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And this the Republicans are trying to frame their I can't remember exactly what they call it.
I don't either.
They call it the American Health Care Act.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the Affordable Care Act is baked, and it's baked into the system now. And the Republicans want to change this and disrupt the entire market with this new bill, and there's huge opposition to it, and I think it will be very difficult for them to get that passed. I don't see that passing, and I'm quite frankly surprised that President Trump is making this his focal point instead of a focal point on an infrastructure bill or a tax reform bill. If this is the focal point of his administration right now, in addition to the Muslim ban, then I think that's a huge mistake on his part, and I don't think it will be very successful. Now, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, we all know that it was passed kind of convoluted. It never went to conference committee like it was supposed to, like it was anticipated to go into conference committee, and we were going to work out a lot of the details and correct some of the problems of the Affordable Care Act. That never happened, and it never was able to be corrected during the time because the Republicans wanted to repeal the whole thing, and President Obama wouldn't let anything pass, or he would veto anything that were the changes that the Republicans made. So there was no effort to actually come together on a compromise. The Affordable Care Act needs it needs some tweaking. Everyone admits that. So, I mean, I think the Democrats are willing to look at some of the tweaking that needs to be done.
Right.
Changing the wage index is one of the main
Things,
problems. But anyway, these are things that are in the woods.
Yeah, that's right. That'll keep it from going.
Right.
And I guess my question really is, can